I was halfway through my morning coffee, just minding my own business in the kitchen, when Janice Larch stormed through my front door like she owned the place. Clutching an HOA clipboard like it was the Ten Commandments, she had that gleam in her eyes, the one that only appears when someone has just thought of a new way to make your life miserable. As of this morning, Room 2B is under Homeowners Association jurisdiction, she declared, with the kind of confidence reserved for people who've never been told no. I froze mid-sip, coffee mug hovering like a hostage, as she whipped out a tape measure and started sizing up my guest bedroom doorway. My bare feet were cold on the tile, and of course I was wearing my most embarrassing pajamas, the ones covered in cartoon clouds and lightning bolts. You may retain the kitchen and bathroom, she continued, as if she were performing a magnanimous act, but the second and third bedrooms will now be considered community hosting zones. I blinked. Wait, you're trying to annex my house? She nodded solemnly, citing something about subsection 4A of the revised Social Utility Index. Welcome to shared living, Ronald. Let me back up. My name is Ronald Trawick, a semi-retired meteorologist who moved to Lilac Pond Estates for one reason: peace and quiet. When I bought my modest 3-bedroom bungalow 2 years ago, the neighborhood seemed perfect: lavender mailboxes, mandatory potlucks, sure, but manageable. I mowed my lawn, kept my house in neutral tones, and mostly minded my own business. My home was my sanctuary: 1 bedroom for sleeping, 1 for my weather consulting, and a guest room that had never hosted anyone. It was ideal until Janice got elected HOA president 3 months ago. Janice was a former improv teacher who apparently decided that running an HOA was just another performance art. She had visions for the community mandatory yoga in the cul-de-sac, neighborhood composting with shared bins, and now project room share. According to my neighbor Mrs. Chun, this initiative was designed to alleviate underutilized square footage by converting spare bedrooms into community guest suites. Optional, in Janice speak, meant mandatory plus mountains of paperwork. The morning after her announcement, I found an official notice taped to my door, warning me that non-compliance could result in penalties, even eviction. Comic Sans never looked so threatening. I did what any reasonable person would do. I ignored it. 3 days later, I came home from groceries to find Janice in my driveway, a folding cot under one arm, a lava lamp in the other, and a man who looked like he'd been living in his van for a decade. He wore a hemp poncho and carried some kind of didgeridoo. "This is Stuart," she said, smiling without actually smiling. "He's between homes, but spiritually abundant. He'll be using your community hosting zone starting immediately." Before I could protest, Stuart shuffled into my house, leaving behind a trail of, well, something that smelled like burnt patchouli mixed with motor oil. By the time I reached for my phone, he had set up the lava lamp and was burning incense that made my eyes water. "This is trespassing," I said, trying to keep it steady. Janice waved a paper from her clipboard. Apparently, according to the amended HOA bylaws I supposedly agreed to when buying property here, refusing to share community resources was a breach of the Neighborhood Harmony Clause. Transitional housing program, I repeated, my voice cracking, feeling like I'd stepped into some kind of bureaucratic nightmare. "Yes," she said proudly, "we're pioneering a new model of suburban cooperation. And your resistance has been noted. $800 fine for emotional hostility toward a transitional resident." Stuart appeared in my doorway wearing my sister's Christmas slippers. "Hey man," he said, grinning, "your shower pressure is amazing. Mind if I borrow some shampoo?" The days that followed were a surreal blur. Stuart multiplied, somehow. By day 3, there was Bev, a middle-aged tarot reader and life coach, turning my home office into a crystal-strewn shrine and insisting that barometric pressure readings were messages from the universe. I tried changing locks, calling the police, even physically removing their things, but Janice always had a counter. She had copies of keys, police paperwork declaring Stuart and Bev authorized guests, and most disturbingly a camera crew, to film my attempts at reclaiming my own home. Unauthorized handling of a transitional residence property, she declared, as the cameraman zoomed in on me, holding a lava lamp. Another fine, $2,400 now. I protested. They're my rooms. I pay the mortgage. Janice countered with that infuriating grin, which means you've agreed to abide by community standards. Oh, and your grass another violation. It was 2 3/4 inches high, but facts were negotiable in Janice's world. Legal action seemed like the only solution, so I filed the paperwork to evict Stewart and Bev. That's when Janice called the county, reporting me for running an unauthorized rental. An inspector named Tom arrived, politely declining Stewart's homemade kombucha and Bev's palm reading. But he was thorough, and he started asking about the HOA's authority, requesting every single piece of documentation. What he found was explosive. Janice had filed 17 separate complaints in a month, resubmitted zoning paperwork without municipal review, and me favored applied for a federal grant, listing my home as a designated community lodge, requesting $75,000 for a so-called transitional housing program. She had even hidden cameras in my smoke detectors. Stewart? Her nephew with a record for running a fake dolphin charity. Bev? Not even her real, named just a small-town tarot hustler looking for free accommodations. The state moved fast. Investigators from multiple agencies descended on Lilac Pond Estates, uncovering 3 years of Janice's fraudulent activity, including multiple grant scams and personal luxuries masquerading as community improvements. Within days, she was ousted from the HOA, facing fraud, invasion of privacy, and dozens of other violations. The state prosecutor offered her a plea, restitution, and fines totaling $135,000 or up to 15 years in prison. She took the deal. Her house, inherited from her aunt, went to auction. I showed up with $27 and a signed tarot card Bev had left behind and walked away the only bidder. I converted Janice's master bedroom into a home theater and named it the Large Pit. First screening? A documentary on HOA overreach. Invitations went to the neighborhood, even Stewart though he stayed outside. The real satisfaction came in court, when Janice stood up at her sentencing and declared herself a sovereign citizen of Lilac Pond Estates. The judge, utterly done, added another $5,000 for contempt. Her mouth flapped silently, realizing for the first time that HOA authority does not equal immunity from reality. And that's the thing about power trips and tiny bureaucracies, they can feel unstoppable until someone actually notices the paperwork. I keep a photo of Janice on my fridge now, right above the Large Pit projector. Every time I see it, I smile, knowing that sometimes the quiet, semi-retired guy with neutral-colored walls wins. But here's the kicker: what about the next HOA tyrant? Who's going to stop them? That's where I leave it open to you. Would you stand your ground, or just let them measure your doorways? Comment below, share your thoughts, and let's debate the fine line between community spirit and outright tyranny, the one where someone tries to annex your spare bedroom without even asking.